It looks like the Gina Carano situation with Disney is going to Discovery, potentially giving us access to Kathleen Kennedy's emails. And folks, James O'Keefe, simultaneous, apparently getting ready to release major exposés on the Disney C-suite. So, who better to bring on to talk about all of this with us than someone who has represented James O'Keefe as an attorney. We'll get into it, folks, and how this could damage Disney, what their response might be right now. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we endeavor to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, and dive into deep conversations that help us understand what might really be going on in the world of entertainment. Joining us to help us do so today is attorney extraordinaire Ron Coleman. Welcome back, sir.
Great to see you, Pro. How are you?
Oh, doing wonderful. I wish I had as many X followers as you do. You are the king of the Twitter kingdom. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, you know, X followers are a mixed blessing because they can make you think that you are on the top of the world and you're very influential, but they are a little bit harder to squeeze revenue out of than people who come into super chats.
True that, and we hope that Elon will get that fixed right away. We would love to see X as a strong platform, monetizing those who create. Yes, absolutely.
I'm getting. You know, listen, I'm certainly covering my costs, but not my spiritual costs.
Exactly. And time is definitely something that has a value to it as well. Disney is having a time of it right now, Ron, and that is because James O'Keefe, formerly of
Great
Project
segue.
Veritas, now of OMG. Yes, OMG about that segue. James O'Keefe, he's coming out with an expose later today, and here's what he says about it. He says, "We're going to expose top executives of the whole infiltrated temple. It's going to be biblical. The enemies of my mission have one major dilemma. They've run out of arrows," and you can see that he's standing in front of the Burbank headquarters of the Walt Disney Company, also known as the corporate kingdom, the capital of it. Ron, my curiosity is, you, of course, are an attorney who you've argued all the way up to the Supreme Court and won. We're glad to have you and your expertise. What do you expect that the Walt Disney Company legal team is up to today? What do you think Mr. Horatio is doing with his legal experts as they prepare for whatever might be on the way?
Well, do you one better? I've also represented James O'Keefe in numerous courts and his old Project Veritas, and I'm friends with James. So
in other words, you're the worst person to have on the show today. You know nothing about the topic.
Well, you might say that. When you hear what I'm about to say, you'll see why it's not the case. Because notwithstanding how much I like James and admire him, he's let us down a couple times, I would say, in the last few months with some. I wouldn't call them Geraldo Rivera level, Al Capone's vault type stuff, but sometimes drumming up a little bit more excitement than was called for. On the other hand, it's perfect James opportunism, and I mean that in the best possible way, to have set his targets on Disney. There's an organization that is perfectly situated for his specialty, which is getting some loudmouth to talk. The better question. So before answering your question, I think the real question here is what, not what's going to be revealed, but what level of person did he really get a piece of? You know that he's not talking. And I say he, except for some recently very bizarre situations where James has put on the fake mustache kind of thing. Actually, his present mustache, I think, is real. I have to talk to him about that.
Sometimes a man needs a faux, what is it called? A Fu Manchu. There we go. A faux Fu Manchu. Even I am not so sophisticated to pull off that alliteration.
Well, I'd love to know, because it's a big organization. It's got it's got far-flung installations around the country. Did he talk to someone in Hollywood? Did he talk to someone in Orlando? Did he talk to someone, in one of the other in a Marvel office at a.
So let's start there, Ron. So is that what the Disney lawyers today are trying to ascertain? Are they working to figure out, all right, who's talked to this guy and who knows it? Or do you think that that's something that would be very difficult even for Disney to figure out ahead of time?
I mean, they would be, the lawyers would be asking the client, what do you know? Has certainly, James is claiming, if I understand what you said correctly and what I've seen, that he's got comments from top executives. Aren't those the words?
That's
We're going to expose top executives. We're going to expose top executives. That doesn't necessarily mean he spoke to one. He could have spoken to an assistant of one, or someone who works, in the mailroom, but who knows something about one. It's just too big of an organization in the short amount of time. So I'll ask you a better question.
All right.
Well, I don't know if it's a better one, but why the warning? Is it just to drum up interest? I suppose that's a good enough reason. But it is intriguing to ask why, is he looking for? Sometimes you look to you want to see. For example, when you're looking for a hidden camera, you want to see if the other side knows that you're looking. So there are all kinds of tricks you can do to see if people move something away from the lens of the hidden camera.
You would also assume, Ron, that there's not much more to get once you do this. I mean, everybody's going to be on their very best behavior going forward in terms of watching out. So,
well, maybe in terms of watching out. I mean, one thing James is very careful about is protecting people and not giving up people who have not only not giving up people who have cooperated with him, but also extending resources to protect them if necessary. There are just so many possibilities, and all knowing what I now know by virtue of my association with you and the guys over the last few months about the fantastic scope of Disney's operations. I mean, if he's really gotten to the heart of the matter, if he's anywhere near the C-suite, that'll be mind-boggling. But until we see what that soft spot is that he's poking at, I wouldn't even know from a legal point of view what there is to do. You don't know. We start with facts. Law doesn't become relevant until we know what the facts are.
All right. Well, let's play rodent's advocate for a moment. Ron, if you are working for the House of Mouse, if you're their attorney, would you be reaching out to James O'Keefe, to his company OMG, and would you be either making threatening kind of statements? No, we're obviously not physically threatening, but would you be pulling out all the stops, telling him, blazed earth, all that kind of thing? Or would you say, we'd really like to work with you, or do you just stay silent and wait and see what happens?
Well, for one thing, we were both assuming that he has not already reached out to them and asked them for a comment on what he's been told. So if he has, that is a completely different conversation. If he has not, I can't imagine a situation where I would, as a lawyer, recommend going to the guy before he has shown his hand, because it's a rather weak look. It suggests that we have something to be afraid of, and we want to know what it is, and we maybe even want to deal with you. James is not in the shakedown business. There are plenty of people who are. So there is, and notwithstanding the politics of it, anyone familiar with his work will be aware that he's not holding it out in order to get something from Disney. He's trying to build his business and trying to shine lights on dark spaces. So I don't think there's any reaching out. No.
And he'll be operating in a new world for him. When he was working with Veritas, He lived in a world where censorship reigned supreme. Today, with the way that X functions, that's sort of gone. I mean, stories will happen and they will get out there and there's no stopping them. This is a story that's going to be getting out there. There's no stopping it, but this is in a very different way. There's no secret, sort of subterfuge or hidden cameras. This is flat out in court. This out of thatparkplace.com. Folks, if you're not bookmarked yet, well, you should be. Judge appears to side with Gina Carano against Disney's attempt to dismiss case, but no official ruling announced yet. Ron, if the judge approves moving forward, the next stage would be discovery, or what are we going to next in the Gina Carano situation versus Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy?
Well, I've actually done a series of videos on just that question. This is the pre-answer moment. This is the point at which a defendant decides, do we file an answer or do we sue for peace? There is a lot Disney has to lose from litigating this case. Losing on the motion to dismiss in this situation is pretty much losing the case. Because after all, what are they fighting here? Are they fighting over money?
No.
Money means nothing to these people. When all you have to know is a statistic that I heard this morning. I think it was, in fact, I think it was from our friend Valiant, that the Acolyte booked $50 million in pre-production expenses, which you can't even see on the screen. What does that mean? That's when everybody cashed in. That's when people took their fees and their salaries. And my point is, money means nothing to these people. They've, notwithstanding that sooner or later, they're going to have to answer for it. But they're not trying to avoid paying her money. They're trying to avoid a precedent here. It will make a lot more sense for them to settle if she gets a ruling in her favor on this than it will to litigate. And it will make more sense for her to settle than it will for her to litigate, because, I mean, I don't know what her arrangements are with her attorneys. And I know that Elon Musk, our friend Elon Musk, is helping out with the legal fees. He may have something to say about the strategic call as well. I'm not privy to that. So there are a lot of balls in the air, but if indeed she wins the motion to dismiss, the only other point out there that might be worth considering is, let's make one thing clear. In federal court, and in most state courts, but not in New York where I practice, unfortunately. Well, sometimes fortunately, sometimes unfortunately. You cannot file an appeal of a motion, even a dispositive motion like a motion to dismiss, until you run through the whole case. If this were New York, Disney could begin the process of litigation and drag its feet, as one does if you're Disney or if you're the Daily Beast. Drag your feet while filing what's called an interlocutory appeal, which means an appeal that goes on while the case continues. It might be worth it for them to appeal this ruling based on their First Amendment defense, because the precedent is potentially damaging to them. Now, that's a two-way street. If that appeal were to be granted, rather, if the ruling were to be overturned and there were a reversal, that would be great for Disney. If, on the other hand, the appeal were to be the appeal affirmed the decision, that would be worse than if they hadn't ever appealed at all, because a trial court decision is not that strong, especially in a very fact-sensitive case like this. this is all theoretical, because this doesn't happen in the federal courts unless and until you get to a final judgment. They're not going to litigate this case to a final judgment merely for the opportunity to appeal it.
So I want to show you this quote we've got from the judge, and then there's a question that's on the hearts and minds of so many in the audience that they're desperate for you to answer. We're going to give that opportunity.
Well, you know, Pro, speaking to hearts and minds is what I do.
Please, please. Yeah, absolutely. So out of that Park Place, it says, the outlet also reported that Judge Garnett appeared to favor an argument from Carano's lawyer, Gene Scher. Scher argued Disney's First Amendment defense cannot allow it to short-circuit the normal litigation process. And according to the Hollywood Reporter, the judge reacted to this argument stating, I don't necessarily disagree with you, which is strong for judges, I would say, in the middle of that. But Ron, the question that people are wondering, the thing that they want to know is, if this goes to discovery, how much of the stuff of Lucasfilm, how much of the emails of Kathleen Kennedy, how much of the Leslie Headland alleged effort to take down Gina financially, how much of that becomes publicly available, and how is it made publicly available? That's what people are ultimately wanting here. They're wanting to get the curtain pulled back on the place that has destroyed a franchise and ultimately probably destroyed Disney's efforts at becoming as big as Netflix.
This is a tricky question. There is a fairly standard procedure called a protective order that is entered into during litigation in almost every situation, which limits the amount of disclosure outside of the litigation that is possible, at least during the litigation process. What ultimately happens is that there are different degrees of confidentiality. There's stuff that's not entitled to any protection. There's stuff that's designated as confidential, stuff that's designated as attorney's eyes only. And the parties can dispute the different designations. And that in and of itself can become a matter for the judge to decide. If during discovery, Disney argues that these deliberations are confidential, and let's say that those designations are not meaningfully fought over, because the judges don't like the idea that people file lawsuits in order to generate press releases from discovery materials. That's not what the litigation process is for. But at the end of the day, almost everything that's relevant ends up becoming subject to public disclosure, because it has to, the good stuff, the smoking guns, are going to be filed as part of a summary judgment motion, or possibly even earlier procedural motions such as discovery motions. And while some of those materials may be filed under seal, at that level, the judge starts taking a harder look at what is and isn't disclosed, because there is a presumption in the federal courts and in all the state courts in the U.S. that matters that are litigated in the courts are not to be confidential. There has to be a darn good reason. Usually, and in this kind of situation, the kind of reason we're talking about would have to be something of a meaningful proprietary, some kind of confidentiality that would have a negative effect, if disclosed, on the business itself. It's not enough to say, well, we're Disney and this will be embarrassing for us. That's not a meaningful proprietary effect. It has to be something more like, this is the formula that we use to determine criterion A or
right. This would provide some sort of competitive advantage to our, those in our space if they were to know it.
Right. Now, so you do see the federal courts are not like, it's not like some state courts where you have televised proceedings. So people are not going to get any juicy stuff broadcast to them. People are free to go into court and listen to hearings. And if it involves Disney, I'm sure that they will do that. And someone from Hollywood Reporter will be there. and someone maybe from a real journalism outlet will be there as well.
You're clearly talking about Mexican Iron Man, who we will be sending on behalf of thatparkplace.com. Serving rabbit chicken tacos in the courtroom, folks. You heard it here first.
So the answer to your question is, as it always is in my profession, it depends.
That's right. Well, one thing that does not depend, Ron, one thing that does not depend is folks out there should not be depending on anyone else to give them the legal expertise they need when it comes to all of these areas. Folks, if you're not yet subscribed to Ron Coleman on X, well, you're one of the last people on earth to not be subscribed. Get over there and join the party. And here on YouTube, also do the same. Ron, you're having a wonderful explosion on your channel now, and I continue to see your content show up in my YouTube Shorts feed, and they're always very crisp, very bright, and packed full of intelligent information that I appreciate. So thank you for what you do, Ron. My pleasure, Pro, and thanks for letting me share your audience and talk to them and get to know you guys. It's been a blast. Well, you make a great point, Ron. Folks, everything we do is because of you. You all are the gigawatts, and we appreciate you to the moon and back. And folks, you can help us even more by clicking the like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms, hit the notification bell, drop a comment right on down below. Let us know your thoughts on both Gina Carano and James O'Keefe. And folks, don't forget to subscribe to Vacation Radio. It's at Vacation Radio, and support original content coming out from this channel. And folks, will continue to bring you the news, as always. All right, until the next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
You'd better hang on to your feathers, little bird. They need to put you in the show.
What? Jose, what are you listening to? You don't even have ears.
Vacation Radio 24/7. Original music on YouTube. Vacation Radio. WDW Pro's music channel.
I have no idea what you're saying. But if you want to be listening to music, you should head over to Vacation Radio 24/7 on YouTube. One of the 100 other channels WDW Pro's been working on. Oh! And I have a song for you, Jose. Jose Cowabunga. He is Jose Cowabunga. He's Jose. That one seems a little bit foreign to you.